tell me a little bit about how that came about, and I guess just the origins of why it came about, and yeah, man, just its purpose, I guess. There's a few things I want to touch on, but yeah, we'll start with that, I guess.
So the purpose of Fighters Against Child Abuse Australia is to end child abuse. It's a very proactive organisation that, rather than sit back and wait, I guess, to kind of patch up the holes, we're going out and trying to stop them before they start. I mean, we've got a great survivors program that we call the Phoenix program that will sponsor kids, adults, and non-offending family members of people affected by child abuse to do activities that will get them moving and get them healing themselves. Things like martial arts, boxing, gymnastics, dance. We've got a music school hooked up for music therapy. Essentially, anytime we can find a good program that will help the survivors heal, rather than a traditional sort of counselling model. Because myself, I used to be a counsellor, and I found that it just wasn't really an effective way to reach certain people. And I'm not bagging the current system out, and I'm saying we're an alternative. If the system isn't working, we offer them a different way, so to speak. Much more physically active. The benefits of getting out there and moving around are well known. Essentially it started because it had to. It started because there was big gaps emerging in the current models. And so when I saw them, I saw a way for the martial arts to be used. And that's literally how it started. It started as a bunch of martial artists getting together and saying, let's help. Sticking their hand up and taking on survivors of child abuse and training them without fees, essentially. And then we started covering things like uniforms, registration. If they did gradings, we started covering those fees. And that's literally how it started. We then got a Facebook page together to try and reach more martial artists throughout the country. And that just kind of took off. We started discussing, cases that were in the media, and people started sharing it. And so, yeah, it just went bang from there.
I think that's one really good outlet that I find that you guys are doing really well, is that people are aware, and it's funny, right? We're in the middle of a pandemic, a so-called pandemic, and chances are, man, it'll come and it'll go. But we're talking about something that's been there for centuries. Like, I'm from a third world country where child abuse is just it's there, man. You know what I mean? And it's been going on for way longer, and the chances are it keeps happening, right? So the one thing that I find that is really good is that it's not just about talking about it, but even when you guys put the cases up, the little kind of a little snippet of what happened in the case and etc. And whether I think that's really helpful. And it's crazy because when you really, really count it up, like, it's just crazy to think some of the things that are in the details, man. You know what I mean? And I think when people get to really see it that way, you start to really get a gauging on how bad it is. If you just keep talking about it, people can't really gauge in on how bad it is or how bad the situation is, or you can watch documentaries and things like that, but that's like one-off things. But if you look at how often you're putting things up, and that's probably not even as often as it's happening, right? Like, it's just crazy, the finer details. Like, I show my wife sometimes, I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like how do you even, how does this even happen, right? Like, and more than anything, even just a lot of them are allowed to serve minimal, if not anything at all. Or like, I know that a few times recently you've really voiced your opinion about a lot of people being out on parole and just being put back into the public, which is crazy, right? Like, you're talking about how counseling doesn't work and how there's all these other methods about using martial arts and stuff to help child abuse victims and survivors. What the fuck are they doing for the people that have gone and done it? You know what I mean? Like, are you saying that just them serving time and coming out is enough? You know what I mean? Like, what are they doing in order to make sure that, or to ensure that this shit doesn't happen again, kind of thing? So it had me really thinking. I thought that's a great way, because it's real, like, it's a good snapshot of what you really need to know about that situation. You know what I mean? And I think it's a really good way of putting that information out. But just touching back on how you're saying a group of you guys got together, were you finding that you were getting child abuse survivors or victims coming to the gym and training, and that's how it kind of came about? Or was it just something that you guys spoke about and kind of dived into that that aspect?
It was kind of both.
Both, yeah.
It was a really organic
Mm,
process. Is probably the best way to put it.
mm,
It kind of evolved out of an offer to pay for fees
mm,
for an obvious survivor, and it was just a bit of you should do this everywhere, and I just kind of wondered why no one
mm,
was,
mm, mm,
and so I just reached out because I've been doing martial arts since I was a wee lad, and I just kind of reached out to people I knew throughout
mm,
throughout the country, throughout the different regions.
mm,
And then word kind of spread that we were doing this, and people came to us. We had, you know, our first couple of students came to me in Liverpool
mm,
when I was working in the city. And I just reached out to Mustafari and said, hey, can you sort of help these kids out? And he just said, yeah, no questions, bring them in. And that was kind of the attitude I was getting everywhere I sort of touched on. And so that's, when I say a group of us did it, it was just kind of me running around trying to find help for
mm,
people who were inboxing me,
mm,
saying, hey, my kid could really benefit. And so we were running around like that for ages. My wife and I were just plugging away, trying to get any help we could find. Literally getting an inbox from someone, say, in Albury, no idea what's there, Googling it and saying, oh, okay, let's ring this place and just see if they'll help,
mm,
and that's
mm,
literally how it started. And now it's, much more formalized process because we became a registered charity.
mm, mm,
Now we've got paperwork and stuff like that, the real boring side of things
mm,
as well. But it's still the same kind of heart. It's still the same kind of soul of just trying to get in there and help. We're entirely volunteer run, for example. I'll put in hours every week trying to do the stories to raise awareness, because we still get people commenting with that's not true, oh,
mm,
that's you just named my suburb, man, that doesn't happen here. And I'll be
mm.
like, oh, I got some bad news for you, man.
Yeah, that's yeah.
It's not just your suburb, bro. I bet you it's your street too, and we've got a really great team of volunteers now as well that are located throughout Australia. That just, if I don't have anything available, I'll send out the volunteers to try and find somewhere. If I don't, like, for example, there was a case where a guy set his daughter on fire in Perth, and I literally did a fundraiser for them. And then I ran into this really weird problem of how do I get the money to the family. And so my Perth rep, Chris, put a hand up and said, I'm pretty sure I can find them just by the hospital. And she tracked them down, and we actually got to give the money straight to the family,
Mm,
which was just amazing. It
mm,
was so good to be able to actually directly help. And so that's what the volunteers do. And they're running around Australia wide, which is just incredible. We've got a formalized approval structure. If schools or gyms or whoever want to help out, they've got to have working with children checks. They've got to have
mm,
insurance.
mm, mm,
They've got all this boring stuff, but we do a really deep dive because we've had people try and get past the system who
mm.
have been less than scrupulous, and they got knocked back straight away. But yeah, it's just been a crazy ride that started just from a bunch of fighters trying to help each other out.
Mm. It usually does that way though, right? It's
Yeah,
usually just something
absolutely.
small and it ends up becoming something big eventually. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
in terms of spreading what you're doing, and you talk about, I guess, various gyms. Um, so do you try to approach other gyms or even just people that are interested, and how does that work? Like, do you have like, is it more so like a program in place, or is there certain systems and processes like in helping them out? And, is there like, I'm assuming, I mean, usually with these things, there's a system or process because it kind of helps, it makes it easier, right? When you're going to other places, other gyms, so there's not too much kind of hurdles or difficulties, it kind of just smooths through. So how does that kind of work? How do you kind of approach them? Do they approach you, a bit of both? And how does it kind of play out that way?
Once again, it's a bit of both.
Yeah.
I find I don't have to actually do that many approaches
Which is
anymore,
good. Yeah.
which is great. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we've got a lot of gyms registered with the program, a lot of martial arts clubs in particular. Um, but kind of the way it works now, for example, when the music school came on board, they said, look, we want to help out. I said, great. Working with children checks for every instructor, no
Mm.
exceptions. First aid as well for every instructor, no exceptions. And then give me their names and their dates of birth because we're going to search them up. And, you know, that worked out great because every single one of his instructors passed with flying colours. And now there's a music school called Octave 8, which have 12 locations throughout Sydney that can now offer music therapy,
Mm.
and that's literally just the way it works. We don't bend the rules for anyone. There's no there's no give and take with
Mm.
us
Mm.
because we're sending the most vulnerable people out there
Mm.
to these schools. So yeah, no, there can be no exceptions to the rules. But um, it just once again it all sort of started just by people trying to help out, and
Yeah. How
yeah, so
how
that's the process.
how does it? Yeah. How does it? So like, have you connected like in sense like I'm sure like with councils and things like that, they tend to have programs and sometimes even provide some sort of well, you'd like to think so, but you know how do you like how what are some of the ways that you try to expand this association and what the good work that you guys are doing like at a higher level? I guess gyms is one thing, but from the sense I get from you, man, is that you're a guy that would love to see wholesale changes, right? So, what are some of the things that I guess you're visioning, or is kind of happening that we're not aware of, or that you feel like needs to happen in order to get it to that level where it's not just awareness, but there's actual things happening to ensure that these kind of situations don't take place, I guess, or even if it does, there's a good outlet, a good system in place to help these kids.
So there's two really that's a really great question. There's two answers to that.
Mm,
The first one is our legislative reform program.
mm,
Now, this came about because people on the page were literally saying, "Hey, the laws are trash. They're letting offenders off. They're getting slapped on the wrist." And so I literally Googled how to change a law. And same way we became a charity. My wife literally Googled how to become a charity.
it's amazing
And
what Google can teach you, bro.
I know, right? As an organization.
Yeah.
But we checked it out, and we found that there was legal reform councils throughout each state. And for example, it just so happened that when we Googled it, there was an opening for submissions to a special commission that had just formed on child abuse sentencing laws. Now, we had never done anything like this in our lives, and so we did what we usually do, which is we put it up to the pages, and we said, "Hey guys, what laws in New South Wales aren't working? Help us out." And we got some incredible responses. And a lot of our inner circle have been through the justice system, or the criminal justice system, I should say, and they've seen the holes in the system. And so we wrote what was a program that was originally envisioned when I was first in TAFE, which was straight out of high school.
Mm,
And it was literally called the Children's Champion Program, where the kids didn't have to give evidence in front of lawyers, because you've got 8-year-olds getting grilled by, guys in wigs,
mm, mm,
and
mm,
they're just crying their eyes out. And the guys are just saying, well, they're obviously not a reliable witness, Your Honour.
mm.
And sometimes that will literally break a case, and the judge has no choice but to throw the case out. And this is not sometimes, like a lot. Anyway, long story short, we wrote all these recommendations. We get a call up to go speak at state parliament in front of this committee. And I walk in, and I've got, my wife and one of one of our close friends behind me, and there's people talking, saying why they should be immune from prosecution and things like this, and I'm sitting there, and I get up to talk, and they grilled me for about half an hour on my submission, and they were all state members from various parties and various places, and at the end of it, they started the Children's Champion program, which meant that they actually changed the law. So for a pilot program, kids didn't have to face their abusers. And this was insane, like to think that a couple of comments on a Facebook page and then a formal submission, and now the laws have changed. And that's actually still going. It's now called the Witness Intermediary Program. And it just allows a third party to take the testimony, for example. That's being tried in different states as well. It's going gangbusters. So that's actually now one of our main focuses, is the Julia's Justice Legislative Reform Program, which was named after one of our benefactor's daughters. He sadly passed away. A few of your viewers might know Warren Beaumont, or Bowie, from the Liverpool boxing scene. A bit of a legend. He helped us out a lot in the beginning, and so when he passed, we named the legislative reform program after his daughter. So that's one way that we're ensuring that it just doesn't happen, essentially, because we're trying to fight so the laws are toughened up. We're trying to make the sentencing much harsher for child abusers. Funny story, when we were researching the Children's Champion program, we found that the legislation is actually accurate. The legislation is actually not bad. The legislation says that if you rape a child under the age of 10, you do 25 years. However, we then found out that the average sentence handed down was 2 months. So
it's how they use the law. Yeah.
We found out that the gaps aren't actually with the legislation. The gaps are actually with the judges. Now, I'm not going to draw assumptions as to why. I'm just going to say, I mean, the judges, their hands are very tied, because if they put down a harsh sentence and it gets appealed, then it's appealed.
Not sure what happened there.
Yes, I know it's recording.
Yeah, no, that's on my end, I think. Anyway, it's all good. Sorry, yeah. So I think where you're at was, you were saying that the judges were a bit tied up, but you did say the legislation was quite tight. But yeah, and then we were kind of around that end. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the second way is our In Your Corner anti-bullying program.
Yeah.
Which, as I said, the Liverpool police and myself went to local schools. They talked about ways to prevent bullying and government assistance and things like that, and we just taught a martial arts class. And the reason I mention that is because that's going to get a huge expansion as soon as the COVID insanity is gone. We've hooked up with a UFC fighter, Jake Matthews. There's a couple of other UFC fighters, Ebony Bridges, the blonde bomber that you know. And a couple of Queensland athletes are going to come on board as well. And I was literally just on the border of launching that before COVID hit. But I've still got the contacts. So as soon as COVID's over, that's going to start up in a lot of schools throughout Australia. The ones at Liverpool loved it and had a ball. We tried it in primary schools. We tried it in high schools. We had a great reaction everywhere we went. So yeah, that's kind of the second way we're going to do it. But yeah, the legislative reform program is one of our main focuses now. We have a really great team of writers, once again, all entirely volunteer. And the court support program as well. We've got a team of volunteers that go into the courts themselves, make sure the survivors looked after, make sure that their abuser can't get near them physically, because it happens so often that survivors will give evidence and the abusers will be in the line behind them trying to get into the court and just literally breathing down their neck, or they'll get into the courtroom and just staunch. And I mean, no one wants to give evidence when their abuser's sitting there staring at them. So Yeah,
It,
that's the main ways. Yeah.
I guess it all really starts with the legislation, right? Like, and then it kind of all trickles down, right? So you got to kind of really nail that. I guess the best way possible before it kind of moves into, I guess, other avenues. But even when you were talking about the judge and, kind of like having a having a little kid on stand, and like, man, what do you know what I mean, like at some point, regardless of the law, regardless of what your role is as a judge, regardless of what your role is as a lawyer, if you break it all down, you got a little kid there, man. You know what I mean? You got a little kid on stand. What is your expectation in all of this? What do you think you're gonna what do you think you're gonna get when you have a little kid that's afraid, that's been abused, right? And you're asking him questions like, I said, they're a full blown adult. Like they wouldn't even know how to handle that situation. You know what I mean? So it's just even ridiculous in that sense if you really break it down from a. I understand everything's going to have, everything's going to have some sort of, kind of perspective, whether it's a law perspective or how you kind of adjudicate a case or whatever it is. But you got to also have a sense of humane outlook in it, in the sense that you got a little kid, you were a little kid once, you know what I mean? Like you got to kind of have that perspective in it as well. But even with like, if we're talking about, I guess, prevention tools, and I guess trying to kind of be ahead of the curve with some of these situations. Is there anything out there? Is there things that you're looking at or you would like to kind of work with, whether it's technology, whether it's processes, whether it's something that where we can be ahead of the curve before something happens? I know it's quite hard. Like it's not something you can just, you can just kind of see coming, but is there processes for like, for people that may not know much, including myself, I guess?
Yeah, there was a couple of things that we did. There was the education reform program, which we went a bit old school actually with that.
Mm,
We got out of the apps, and um, there's a couple of really great Australian authors. One of them, Janine Sanders, who writes books basically like kids' storybooks is kind of the best way to put it, and they're raising awareness of child abuse, like how to tell if someone's grooming you, using appropriate names
mm,
for body parts, things like that.
mm,
Anyway, we got those sent out to pretty much every local school thanks to a sponsor, 24/7 Fitness East Hills, and they were read to year one, year two students, and we found that was a pretty old school way of doing things, but it seemed to have a great effect.
mm.
We want to get those books out everywhere. We want every school to be reading them as a standard.
It's
Um,
it, yeah. No, it's
yeah,
crazy. I mean, I wanted to stop you there because you were talking about grooming, and it was a topic that me and my wife were talking about the other day. We're watching obviously some of these documentaries and things like that. And
yeah,
I remember her looking over to me and she's like, it's so fucking scary how you don't even
yeah,
know that someone is grooming you. You know what I mean? And it's just, and yeah, because you said that word, it just triggered me, that conversation
yeah,
I had with her about it. And, and yeah, and it's just crazy without going into detail. But even like you're talking about body parts and things like that, I know people out there, with kids that's what they do. They educate their kids to know, like, hey,
so,
say no if someone touches you in your lip, if someone touches you, like you say, no, you don't allow them to do it, things like that. And you're right, man. I think sometimes the best way, or the new school, is the old school, which is just through education and getting them aware, man. Like getting them aware
yeah,
of. It's like it's like you take martial arts, for example. Like obviously, I do a lot of it is I do boxing and stuff. Like I've been doing it for like 13 years, and there's no other way to get better than turning up, doing it, doing it yourself, kind of thing, right? There's no cheat system, bro. Like so I applaud you in that sense, that's probably the best way is getting them to understand it through the education and talking to them, just literally talking to them. So yeah, but I just, because you mentioned grooming, and it was just a big topic that we were talking about, and it was just
yeah,
scary how you think you can be aware of it, you think you can see it, but you see all these victims, and and when they're talking back about it, and you can tell all the moments where they were like, you're like, damn, like they were grooming me the whole time, or this was being done the whole time. And they're just, and as outside people, or as outside spectators, man, you can easily sit there. It's like a perfect example. It's like watching this horror movie the other day, and I was just like, why is he doing this? Why, as you do when you watch horror movies, right? You're like, I
Yeah.
would do this, I would do that. And then she's like, it's like, man, I don't think the kid knows what to do, blah, blah, blah. And it's the same thing. It's like you could say whatever when you see it after it's happened, but when it's happening, man, any Tom, Dick, and Harry can just turn a blind eye to it and not know it's happening, which is
Can I
crazy.
tell you something about abusers?
Mm,
They are the word master manipulator is used to describe child abuse, and that's no front.
mm,
That's legit.
mm,
They are absolute master craftsmen at manipulating minds, not just children's, mind you.
mm,
A
mm,
lot of people say rubbish like, "Oh, if it was my daughter, I would have known." No,
mm,
you wouldn't. I'm
mm.
sorry to say that you wouldn't. People say things like, "Why did they leave them with a babysitter?" Well, gosh, you know. Um, and the people say all these really, and don't get me wrong, I understand it because you're angry that this child has been abused, and you're looking for reasons, and you're looking for causes and all this sort of thing. And like the horror movie, you're sitting there going, "Just don't open the door, idiot!
Yeah,
Why are
yeah,
you?"
yeah, 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 yeah.
And it leaves a kid with the abuser. Oh wow, problem solved. It's like the guy in the UFC crowd screaming, "Knock him out!"
Mm,
Why didn't I think of that, mate?
mm,
And as you said, hindsight's an awesome thing. But these abusers, they are masters of manipulation, and they manipulate everyone. They manipulate mum and dad. And a big problem at the moment is groomers going after single mums. Right, the groomer will use social media. They'll check them out. They'll realize they're a single mum, and they'll go, right, I've got you. And then before they know it, mum's leaving the child with this trusted friend, and bang. And people are like, well, why would you leave them? Well, they did because they are masters at this. This is what they do. They are predators of the highest order. And so one of the biggest things about our social media campaign that I'm really proud of is the posts like how to spot grooming, how to defend your child against grooming. For example, we put a post up and we mentioned Fortnite bucks, V-Bucks. And does your child have an excessively large V-Bucks account that you don't remember giving them? And one person inboxed us straight away and said, yeah, what does that mean? And I was like, well, read the post. It kind of says that someone could be propping up their V-Bucks account. Ask yourself why. And little things like having the computer in a common or the PlayStation in a commonly shared area. Little things like that are really good ways to protect against it, and always make sure you understand your child's games. Make sure you know what the currency is. Make sure you know if they have something they really shouldn't, because these are all weapons that they use. And like iTunes gift cards are commonly found in abusers' homes in big piles of them. Why? Because they're so easy and untraceable, and they can flick
mm.
them an iTunes gift card for $50, and they can spend it wherever they want. And then suddenly, and that's the saddest part is grooming is on the rise largely because of the internet and social media. And it's
Mm.
just, the days of the guy hiding behind the tree in a trench coat at the park are gone,
Especially now
and the
with,
day,
like, you would know, with Fortnite and stuff, bro. Like, online gaming is so easy, right? Like, all you need is an internet, all you need is an account, and anyone can find your account, no matter what game you're playing. I've had like people try to add me, and dude, like, honestly, I'm a big game. I love gaming, but it's my alone time, so I don't even play online. I don't even play online. I fucking turn off. I turn it off. Yeah, I turn off the
yeah,
online thing, and I just
yeah,
tune in. And I've had people try to add me, and I'm like, unless it's my mates, and I know it's my
yeah,
mates, like,
yeah,
I don't bother. I'm like, leave me alone. This
yeah.
is my alone time. But you're right, man. Like, yeah, like the days of hiding behind the bushes and shit like that, it's been more weaponized with, like, now with online, with the internet. It's so easy for someone to get in touch with you now. You know what I mean? It's crazy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. And they're really good at it too.
Yeah. And that's
They
that's the one thing, man. I think it's very good with your education is that, like, and like you said, like, 2020 hindsight and all that is beautiful. And it's easy for people to turn around and be like, oh, but man, if that was me, I would have whatever. But the thing is, man, look at all the commonality in all those comments. All the commonality in all those comments is after it's happened. You've had time to think about it. You've had time to
Yep.
see how it happened, yeah,
Yep.
etc. And then you trace it back and think, oh, if that was me, then I would have done this. But the truth of the matter is, like you said, you wouldn't know when it's happening. You know what I mean? Like you wouldn't know, and then you would understand how stupid it sounds, because someone else is going to say that to you, saying, "Hey,
Yep.
if that was me," you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you would know, like, oh man, like how much of an idiot you sound like when you say it, because it's scary, man. It's honestly like, and like that's why I was telling my wife before we come on. I was like, I was really thinking about like just this topic, and just what the good work that you guys are doing, and I was like, it's just crazy how this thing like it's just been happening for so long. You know what I mean? Like way before my time, most likely way before your time. Like it's been happening. It's just and you just it's not till you meet these victims, or and I know certain people that have gone through something similar, and it's crazy because you could judge them and you could be like, oh, this person's a bit, this person's a bit of a dick, or this person's acting this way. But then, man, when you really kind of peel the layers off and you realize, like, they're just a product of their environment. They're just a product of what was done. And what happens? You lash out at the world. You lash out at, you lash out at people, and people see what you think is the ugly side to someone, but that's just someone who's is really hurt, and and it's just crazy, like you were saying, like babysitters, or even you were saying with children's check, all these things, yet somehow you can find a way to bypass all of that as well, and people have, what I mean? And that's why you got to be so thorough in how you do that, how you do check that and review that and see who's who's kind of coming on board and things like that. But yeah, it just blows my mind, man. It really does. And I think the half the issue here is, and I think you slowly touched on it when it came to the legislative side of things and etc., was that, like, with judges being, with their hands tied a little bit with the I guess the economic impact with appealing and things like that, and that's why they're lighter sentences and things like that. But it's like, it's almost and I'm sure it's angered you, but it's almost like, well, you know what I mean? Like look what you're comparing that to. Look what you're comparing, what a problem is to you guys economically, to the situation that you're comparing it to. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous, and at the same time, you're trying to stop it. But at the same time, things like money, things like all those economic impact is playing a factor into something that's destroying people's lives, man. Like, it's just crazy. I don't know. It's just, yeah.
And that's what people don't get. And I hear a lot of comments, particularly in social media, about why did it take 30 years to report child abuse? Like, people calling BS on survivors coming out and making historical claims. This is what a lot of people don't realize, is the extent of child abuse trauma, the extent of destruction, the extent that it will level someone. And for us at FACAA, the biggest thing for us is we want to see child abuse survivors reach their potential, because we feel like there's so much potential unfulfilled out there. Like, kids have unlimited potential when they're young. They could do anything in the world, and then along comes some selfish coward who decides to take that away from them. They rob them of self-esteem. They make them feel like absolute trash, like they don't deserve any better. And so they'll go through life and they'll get opportunities, and it'll be self-sabotage. It'll be, no, I don't deserve that because I'm just this piece of trash that was abused. And they go through this trauma cycle where they don't reach potential. They self-medicate. They take drugs and alcohol, and people see someone strung out and go, oh, how pathetic. You don't know what they've been through. You don't know what they're self-medicating from. You don't know what memories are keeping them up at night. You don't know what trauma they've faced. And I'm not saying that, surviving child abuse is a ticket to just completely live your life, wasted. I'm saying that people need a lot more understanding of survivors of child abuse and the trauma they're going through. And it's a daily occurrence. We have 70-year-old survivors on the page who tell me that every single day they panic when the door knocks. Every single day they will go into an absolute meltdown. 70 years old. It happened to them when they were 6 or 7. And they still, to this day, relive the trauma every single day. You talked about the cost to, and the way that judges justify poor sentences by saying it's a cost on society. We were part of a group called the Big Eight for a while there. Steggles Chicken were bringing together the large charities in Sydney, and they were going to do a huge campaign. It fell apart due to various reasons, but we were at a table once and we were listening to people quote statistics, and it was $8 billion a year was the estimated cost of child abuse in New South Wales, one state. Now, how they came to that cost was they did an analysis of the health system, how much drug and alcohol rehab. One methadone provider that I got to speak to while researching told me that he would estimate that 90 to 95% of his clients, so methadone is the replacement drug for heroin, 90 to 95% of his clients were child abuse survivors. And so when they came up with this figure, they took that into account. They took into account the prison system. They took into account how much it costs to house prisoners and how many survivors of child abuse are in our prison system. And so, yeah, $8 billion was the estimated cost. And that was done, was that Bernardo Club? Yeah, I think it was Bernardo's quoted that, and it just blew everyone out of the water when because they actually did a mathematical study on the cost. And people just don't realize these things. People just think, my favorite is, I got hit when I was a kid and I turned out okay. Okay, cool. Thanks for that. That's not what we're talking about here, man.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
it's just crazy.
Yeah, like half of it seems to be just the lack of understanding. I mean, that's half the problem, isn't it? Like, people really just don't understand what, like, when they think child abuse, they just think just getting hit. Like, dude, like, I was born in Sri Lanka. Like, getting hit was like, you know what I mean? In hindsight, it's nothing. Like, you know what I mean? It was just a form of, it's much more deeper than that, is what I'm trying to say. It's just much more deeper than that, with the training and with, since introducing it, like, I'm a big fan of that. Like, I mean, I always tell my wife, like, I would want my kids, I would never push them to compete in martial arts, but I would get them to do it, only because I found it coming from a really bad place. And more than anyone, bro, like, what it's like, you know what I mean? It's just it's next level in terms of discipline, and more than anything, just control over your emotions, and all these scattered thoughts that was going like 100 kilometers an hour seems to just slow down completely, where we have time to think and really process what's going on, and I always said to her, like, the truth of the matter is that we're not going to always be there, and we're not going to always, and it doesn't mean that they're not going to be in sticky situations or tough situations, but it's a matter of learning how to deal with it. And that's what it taught me. It taught me how to deal with certain situations better than I would have if I wasn't training in it, and what has some of the results been, and what has some of the outcomes been with that process, like seeing some of these kids go through training and just, I guess, building up that self-confidence, from your perspective? Like, what are some of the I guess, stories you can share, or and it doesn't have to be specific people, but just what are some of the benefits you've seen come out of it especially with these kids that come from such a tough childhood and being abused.
Yeah, you can't wipe the smile off my face when
Yeah.
you bring that topic up. You
Yeah,
really can't. I
100%.
wish
That's
I could
why
open
I
up.
brought it up, because I
Yeah,
knew, like, I was interested. Yeah, because I know the impact of it, man. Like, I'm a big fan of it, and I train people as well, and I love it, man, because there are some things that you can't. There's some things you just can't. You can't teach people. They got to find it in themselves, and this allows you to find things in yourself that you never knew existed, and that's what I love about it. And that's why I always said, till I break, till I get carried out in a coffin, man, I'll never stop training because of what it gave me. Funny enough, I spoke to my coach yesterday, and I told him, look, when my, like I've never taken it serious where I'm trying to be world champion or anything. I've gone into that ring, like I've had, as literally would have been July 31st. I was meant to fight today, and I was
I
meant to have
know.
yeah. Funny enough, I
Yeah,
was meant to
right.
have I came off from like a layoff working on Mercenary Entertainment. I took a year off work 2 years ago, and so it was a long slog. You know what it's like when you put on weight, you got to
Yeah,
go through everything
that is.
again. Yeah,
That
yeah.
is.
So like, and I said, man, I told him yesterday, I would love to be more involved with some of the younger boys and help them mentally, like with the mental game and in terms of training and how to look after themselves and how to prepare themselves and help out some way possible. And because I know what it does because of what it did for me. When you mentioned it, I was like, and you said how you're a counselor, and then and not, you obviously knocked their system, but you could talk to people all you want, but it doesn't mean they're going to open up and talk back to you, right? But
Sadly.
there's elements in your system, there's elements in your body, in your mind, and your soul
Yep.
that is untapped and untouched, like you said, untapped potential that you got to find a way to bring it out. And this is such a great way to bring it out, because if you push yourself and you train hard, that's what it asks of you. It asks of you to go to that place where you gotta pull out all these things in your head and deal with them. And that's what I was saying, that in an hour training session, I'll pull out all this shit that's going on in my life and I'll shelf it, and I'll be like, all right, how am I going to it's like Matthew McConaughey said it in a podcast where he's like, Joe Rogan was asking him about, because he's a active person, like, Matthew McConaughey, and he was saying how he was asking him about his training and how, he exercises, how he keeps him motivated and why he exercises. And he said it perfectly, man. He was like, he goes, everything, before he works out or before he trains, everything's vertically on his shoulders, like he's just sitting on his shoulders, right? And once he works out, it all falls in front of him, and he can see what's in front of him. He can see all the hurdles, but he knows how to deal with it one time. And he goes, but before that, he goes, everything can just feel like it's heavy on your shoulders. And that's exactly how I explain it to people. Even when I'm tired or even when I'm thinking, I just turn up, because I'm like, afterwards you'll thank yourself, because it seems like the whole world is on your back, and that you're carrying almost extra 10, 20, 30 kilos, but half of it's not your weight. It's just what's in your head. It's what you're dealing with, right? And so when you mentioned that, I was really interested, and I was always going to ask you that question, because I was like, I know what it would do, but I wanted to hear it from you. But yeah, like tell me what, from your perspective, man, just, seeing these guys train and going through what it's done for them.
Look, I'm the luckiest instructor in the world. I really
Mm,
am. I get to run the FACAA programs, and I get to see them implemented.
mm,
I don't know any other charity heads that actually get to physically go into their programs and watch
mm,
it work. And so I consider, I know I'm really blessed in that sense, and I've got a lot of gratitude for what I do. And so, you know, it, it's really funny you say all that, because I was exactly like you.
mm,
I had a few MMA fights. I was never going to be a world beater, but
mm. Just
I
test
wanted
yourself. Yeah.
100%. I just wanted
Yeah.
to see, more
Mm.
than anything, I wanted to see if I wouldn't run away.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wanted
Yeah.
to see if I'd
Yeah.
stand in that ring and go, okay,
Mm,
let's do this.
mm,
And I was quite. I came up with a strong team. Like at KMA, we had at the time we had Oriel Gassett, Corey Nelson, Sharby Caffo, and Corey Nelson had claimed every welterweight belt that could be claimed at one stage. And these were the guys that brought me up. And then Martin Ewan and I kind of started at around the same time. He started a little bit before me. And there was murderers row at KMA. They were just killers on killers. And so, you know, coming up through that, like you said, it didn't matter how tired I was or how bad I got beat in the sparring. I just showed up. I just literally threw myself up those stairs and said, okay, come on, just whoever's hitting me, hit me. Let's go. And just that sense of just show up and put the work in, you know. And then I got to see my own son come up through the ranks of Little Dragons, which is the cutest program I've ever seen for 4-year-olds.
Yeah.
Uniforms.
Yeah.
And they jump around and they spar the instructors. And he came all the way up through and he got his junior black belt. And I always said to him, man, you're going to do two things when you're growing up. You're going to learn how to swim and you're going to learn martial arts, both for the same reason. I hope you never have to use them, but if you ever do, you'll be happy you've got them.
Got him, 100%.
You know? But now I see the mental benefits with him. Like when he's on the basketball court, he'll hustle. Like you'll see people, they'll attack the ring and then they'll walk back. Whereas Danzig will attack the ring and then sprint back. And just because he just knows that he's just got to do the work. For those 40 minutes, he's on and he's like right on. And that's kind of something that I didn't even realize until afterwards, looking back, thinking that was his black belt attitude. You know, that was his attitude towards training. Just show up, put the work in and get it done. And now with FACAA, as I said, I wish I could open up my inbox and show you all the pictures of kids from around Australia with their beaming with pride with their belts on, or beaming with pride with their new dance costumes on, and you know, all these mad photos that we get, and I love every single one of them. But in terms of actual being able to actually get in there and help them myself, I've seen so many great stories. We had these two little refugee kids come in, and they were two of the first that we actually ever got to help, which was amazing. And one of them came into, he came in tears one day, the oldest boy. And I said, what's wrong? And he said to me, I'm not going to do it, sir. I'm not going to be your first black belt. And I went, that's cool. What's happened? I thought something. And he said to me, I got an apprenticeship. He was one of the youngest technicians from a certain company that they've ever taken on. He didn't even have his license. And they gave him his apprenticeship based on, you know, just the fact that he got in the interview. He said there was 500 people going for this job, sir. And I put my resume in, and then he said, I got a call back, and I went into the interview, and he said, I just thought about it, and I thought, no, I'm going to get this. And he said, and I thought about all the times that we were rolling, and I thought about, and he said, and I dug deep, and he said, these guys, they were so much older than me, and they had licenses, and he said, but I just went in, and I said, no, this is mine. I'm going to get that. And he did. And poor kid, he was upset because he wanted to be
black belt.
Dude, that's not the goal, man. The goal is what you've done. The goal is to help you reach your potential, bro. Like, I was amazed. You know, we've had other cases where we've had I always quote this one story. It's the little girl that came in, literally hid behind a mother, wouldn't talk to us, from a very, very domestically abusive situation. And God love her, she wouldn't talk. She wouldn't even get off the grandstand. She just hugged mum. Every time I went near her, she just hugged mum tight. And I tried to, you know, walk her over. Didn't want a bar of it. So I said, look, do me a favor. Just keep bringing her in. Just keep bringing her in. The more that you bring her in, the better. And mum, to her credit, brought her in twice a week. And then after a while, you know, she started to look at me. She started looking me in the eyes and things like that. And occasionally I'd flash a pad at her and she'd punch it, and I'd walk off happy, you know. And eventually one day she just appeared on the mats, just sitting down with the rest of the kids. And I was like, wow, okay, cool.
Yeah.
And the other instructors are looking at me like, yeah, so what? There's a kid in the line. I'm like, let me handle this one. Just shut up. Just go teach. And eventually she started to line up with the kids, jump on the class, to do everything. She got a uniform, everything. And, you know, fast forward 12 weeks and she's there going for her first grading. And this little girl that couldn't get away from mum, like wouldn't even not look at you in the eyes, was there screaming at instructors, throwing them around like they were rag dolls. And And I just, I had to run to the change rooms. There was something in my eye that day.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, yes, just little stories like that. And you know,
Yeah.
we've got kids in South Australia who have been going for like 6 years under the program, and just the stories that their mum tells us of how far they've come.
Mm.
They couldn't even read or write properly, and we have got nothing to do with that, obviously. But just the confidence.
No, but yeah, 100%. It's tapping into that confidence and in that level of like, you were talking about your boy running, running back each time, right? More so than knowing you're putting in the work, he knows that, hey, like, I'm not tired. I'm not like, what you're it's like one of my boxing coaches, he explained it the best. He was like, it's like being at the beach and you go and the wave hits you and then you realize there's another wave and then you hit the other wave and you keep going and it's another wave. And I remember when we used to spar from the first round, we just go boom. And he used to say like, pardon my language, but he used to say, when you're fucked, he goes, that's when the beauty of boxing comes out. Cause then you stop thinking. And he used to always say that. And I remember how much that transformed me, man. Like, like, I can't even, I mean, you can imagine because you've been through it, but like, it's just like, it's that discipline. Like it's the principles you learn from turning up to training. It's like programming your body when you're tired and you said you dragged yourself up the stairs to training. It's like that. It's your body eventually, your mind eventually programs to be like, that is your norm. It's like the principles you learn from training, the discipline, the processes, the systems, the over and over, and then you translate it. And that's what I was saying with like Mercenary Entertainment, like with everything, with my podcasting, with everything. Like there's been days I always say this, like I wanted to throw my computer out the window, man, because I'm like, fucking nothing's working. You know what I mean? And it's like, but even then there's days where like, if COVID didn't hit right now, there was other things that I was doing, like video content work, like in the space of like mental health and things like that, like more deeper, but it didn't work out. But the one thing that training and the one thing that boxing and kickboxing in the time that I've been to this point has taught me was just turn up, and eventually you'll find your way. And so I always tell people, like, don't worry about how you're going to get to door number 10 if you're at door number 1. Worry about how to get to door number 2, and then worry about how to get to door number 3. And before you know it, it's been 10 years now, or it's been 13 years now. And I'm like, holy fuck, I can't believe I'm doing half the shit I'm doing now. I can't believe I'm as fast as I am, or putting in the work, and I get to train with professional athletes and surround myself around them and see what, and all those things. And it's just those principles, those systems. And that's, and that's why I said to my wife, I want my kids to just learn, because what they learn from that system, what they learn from that processes, that can just be related to anything in life, anything. Like you talked about the young man that got his apprenticeship, right? He was at that clinical moment where there was all these people and he could have easily turned around and said, fuck that, man, this is too many people here. You know what I mean? But inside he realized, you know what, so what, I'm going to find my way through. And that one moment would have come from years of turning up and rolling with you on the mats and everything, and it's just crazy, man. Like, that's why I tell people, I'm like, you just don't know till you throw, you get what you give is essentially, you get what you give. And I think it's amazing, man. And I think that it's such a good way to enter into this other aspect of what it is with, with child abuse and things like that, and bringing in a system that is ancient. It's ancient, way before, like, and has worked. It's always worked. And it's not about, going in training will fix this problem. No, it's about giving them a platform to dig deep into their soul and find out, how am I going to deal with what is going through my mind? But it's like martial arts, or even yourself, you're just the driver. You know what I mean? But it's ultimately up to them. But you want to give them that platform where they get to do that, and I think that's the most amazing part about it all, but tell me, man, like, as we kind of, ended off in this, but how can people help, number one, and what's the best way to help you guys in being able to keep pushing this forward and expanding it and making it something that that is not just going to end child abuse, but something that's going to, it's going to last a long time. How can people that are watching, or people that want to take part interested, because I know athletes and I know fighters, the second I dropped your logo on my gram, they were messaging like, let us know. And so, what can people like me and the people that are watching do to help your cause, man, and help keep building this to be something, even more special than what it already is?
It depends on what people want to do. Like, for example, athletes, get them to like the page and drop me an inbox.
Sure.
I'd love to talk to them. I mean, that's literally how Ebony Bridges came on board. She liked the page, dropped us an inbox and said, how can I help? And I said, well, look, if you wanted to, rep our symbol, that'd be great. And, she does that, which is amazing. And, she's going to go forward and become a bigger part. I use her because, that's an example that you personally have met through Mercenary, and, we are always looking for people like that, athletes, anyone with a following that can just help us raise awareness, because like you said, it's people don't get it. People don't understand just how bad child abuse is in Australia. People think it's a third world problem, things like that. And that's what the awareness raising campaign is going to help change. It's a social attitude shift. My wife was saying the other day, she smiles when she sees people in comment section quote us. Say things that we say, like child abusers can't be rehabilitated. We'll see that in like 9 News quotes and things like that. And it's like, that's awesome. That's so good. So people can help out that way. If they want to help out by running a FACAA approved gym, once again, like the page and drop us an inbox. I'd love to approve more fight schools, more boxing schools. I'd love to approve more instructors to help take on more kids. We might not get you anyone to help straight away, because it is what it is. A lot of government organizations love working with us and a lot don't know us, and that's cool. But yeah, get yourself registered with FACAA. We can also provide tips on teaching people with trauma. We can provide instructionals on how to not re-traumatize people who have been through something. Things like this, we can help gyms grow as instructors as well. And we'd love to hear from anyone that wants to do that. Essentially, the easiest way to help us out is to share the page, share the post. We go live with an original post every Monday to Friday at 6:30 p.m.
Okay.
Every Sunday we do an inspirational post trying to pick up survivors. We call it Survivors Sunday. Every Friday we do a video about something that needs fixing. Any one of these posts can be shared, and if you share it and someone says, hey, that's not true, every single one of our posts has a source. So we don't just spout things out. We source all of our posts, so you can check it out for yourself if you want. So just sharing the posts. If people want to donate, that'd be awesome. Every donation over $2 is fully tax deductible. And the unique part about FACAA is you can tell us where you want it spent. If you want to see it put a uniform in one of our clients' hands, you can do that, and we'll send you the receipt with the name blacked out, obviously. Things like that are really helpful. Yeah. I'm not even going to pretend, like, we're a volunteer-run organisation, but there's still things that cost money, obviously.
Of course, yeah.
So you can donate to the cause. You can. Our Facebook page has a direct PayPal portal, so that's nice and easy. But yeah, just like the page, share it around. Tell people to jump in the fight. That's probably their best way.
Yeah, 100%. And with Mercer Entertainment, with creating content, and with any way in terms of, whether it's, some days where you'd like to capture content, if it all works out, man, you got my support. So just give me the word. Whether you have days where you got athletes working with kids and things like that, or any content creation or anything like that, and there is space or there is, you know, some sort of demand to get it documented in any way, yeah, I'll give you my word, man. I'm here. Just let me know. Yeah.
That's actually really good to know, because there's a
Yeah.
lot of times
I had a bigger plan
where,
for this, man, before COVID hit. Like I really did.
yeah,
That's why I was holding off on you, because I had this crazy plan, and you know, coming live and filming, making it like into a kind of short kind of document, all these things. And
oh, man,
when COVID hit, I was like, man, I don't want to miss out on this. I don't want to miss out on this. And then the universe started talking to me like, dude, just get it done before you regret not getting it done. And then that's why I was like, you know what, we'll make it into a podcast. And but you know, I wouldn't do this if it wasn't important for me, number one. And number two, you know, not even just important to me, but if I wasn't passionate about what you guys are doing, you know, and supportive. But yeah, man, definitely, man. Like I said, if it all lines up in whatever happens in the future, man, you definitely got my support. Just, you know, just give me a heads up.